Global energy markets are currently staring down a massive supply shock. With the US-Iran conflict escalating around the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical maritime choke point is at risk of severe disruption. Compounding this physical threat is a financial one. Western nations have heavily weaponized the US dollar, operating under the assumption that the rest of the world will fall in line with their sweeping economic sanctions against Russia. But in August 2026, India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, arrived in Moscow to co-chair the 27th Inter-Governmental Commission on Trade. During this visit, he held closed-door strategic talks with the highest levels of the Russian government, including First Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov and Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov. According to conventional Washington logic, maintaining ties this deep with Moscow should result in diplomatic isolation. Instead, bilateral trade between India and Russia has surged past $65 billion. India is demonstrating a specific brand of statecraft known as strategic autonomy. By securing its continental interests with Russia while actively expanding its high-tech and maritime alliances with the US and the Quad, New Delhi is actively defying Western pressure. To understand why India maintains this stance, we have to look at its domestic math. India has a massive population and an economy that is highly sensitive to the cost of imported energy. The Moscow summit secured a massive economic buffer, the guaranteed daily flow of nearly 2 million barrels of discounted Russian crude oil, which now fulfills roughly 40% of India's total energy requirement. Western capitals have heavily criticized New Delhi for purchasing this sanctioned oil, arguing that it undermines their economic blockade. This chart models the alternate scenario. The red line projects where global oil prices would have gone, spiking to as much as $200 a barrel if India hadn't absorbed the Russian crude. By continuing these purchases, India stabilized the global market, keeping prices closer to the blue line and preventing runaway global inflation. Beyond crude oil, the summit guaranteed long-term deliveries of agricultural fertilizers and an expansion of the Kudankulam nuclear power plant. Securing these resources is a structural necessity, providing a massive buffer against inflationary shocks that could otherwise derail domestic growth. Moving $65 billion in trade creates a massive logistical problem when the US dollar and Western clearinghouses like SWIFT are blocked by sanctions. This diagram shows the financial bypass. Instead of routing through a US dollar or SWIFT hub, trade flows directly between a Rupee and Ruble node using Vostro accounts. Because India imports more, this loop initially created a severe imbalance. Russian banks held a massive surplus of rupees. The Moscow talks finalized a solution. Russia is reinvesting those surplus rupees directly into Indian sovereign bonds, capital infrastructure, and manufacturing. Economic and energy security relies heavily on the physical military hardware required to protect it, and a large percentage of India's active defense platforms are of Russian origin. The MiGs in Moscow locked in delivery schedules for the remaining S-400 Triumph air defense batteries, along with crucial modernization kits for India's Su-30 MKI fighter jets. Getting that heavy hardware to the subcontinent presents risks. The traditional Suez Canal route is highly exposed to Middle Eastern conflict and Western naval presence. To bypass the vulnerable Suez route, India and Russia are fast-tracking two direct alternatives: the international north-south transport corridor through Iran and the eastern maritime route from Vladivostok to Chennai. These new supply lines cut transit times by 40% and reduce shipping costs by 30%. By creating dedicated logistical corridors, India ensures its military supply lines and energy imports can function completely independently, bypassing Western clearinghouses or vulnerable maritime choke points altogether. Dr. Jaishankar's visit to Moscow achieved immediate economic and military goals, but it also served as the ground preparation for a much larger diplomatic event. Russian President Vladimir Putin is now confirmed to make an official visit to New Delhi for the 2026 BRICS Leaders Summit. New Delhi is demonstrating its ability to engage with conflicting global powers. It can host a sanctioned Russian head of state while simultaneously conducting high-tech and maritime security agreements with the United States. The expectation that rising powers must eventually align entirely with either a Western bloc or an Eastern bloc no longer applies. By maintaining this unshakable partnership with Moscow against intense international pressure, India has proven that it is a fully independent, multipolar global power capable of dictating its own terms. Do you think India's alliance with Russia will be its strongest economic shield over the coming decade? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep dive geopolitical analysis.